Okay, welcome to Rock Docs, a podcast about music documentaries. I'm David Lizerbram here with my co-host,
Andrew Keatts.
And today we are going to talk about a documentary called Randy Rhoads, Reflection of a Guitar Icon. Came out in 2022, directed by Andre Relis. Once again, we don't know how to pronounce people's names. That's not what we're known for on this show. He's produced a lot of stuff, including documentaries, a variety of other things, music videos, different things. As a director, he only has the credit of this, and then in 2016, a documentary called NWA and Eazy-E, Kings of Compton.
Interesting.
So he only does documentaries about 1980s-ish era Los Angeles musicians.
It's a pretty good niche, frankly.
Who died too young.
Yeah, you should do like In Living Color.
The show or the band?
The band.
Okay, or both.
You should do the show for sure. Living Color, like, didn't we talk recently? Wasn't Living Color? Wasn't there a like a crowdsource, like a crowdfunding thing for a documentary for them?
There might have been.
Yeah,
I might be forgetting that, but I'd be interested to hear more about Living Color.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. We don't have a preamble, so we're just going to kind of get into it.
Okay.
All right, so what's your where were you with Randy Rhoads? If I had said the name Randy Rhoads to you before this documentary came into our target.
Well, so I did have a very small background. There was a friend I had in high school who was a guitar player who loved Randy Rhoads, and would often discuss him as an equal to your Jimi Hendrix or Jerry Garcia. And so that sort of idea was presented to me relatively early, even though I otherwise would have never probably come across that idea, I don't think. That said, I have to admit I didn't know about everything he did before hooking up with Ozzy Osbourne. I knew Quiet Riot, and I knew Randy Rhoads, and I knew Ozzy Osbourne, but I sheepishly admit that I did not know that Randy Rhoads was the founder of Quiet Riot.
Well, this movie has a lot to say about that.
That's most of the movie,
yeah.
In fact.
Yeah. I mean, I knew mostly, the Ozzy stuff as kind of a teenage metalhead / guitar nerd. Mm-hmm. I certainly respected and appreciated him. I never went super deep, but yeah. I mean, I knew he had been in Quiet Riot, but I wasn't really that up on Quiet Riot. Here's my Quiet Riot story.
Yeah.
Which is very tangential, but I'm just going to lay it out here.
Yes.
I was in this band in LA in the early 2000s, and we had this practice space that was like this, in this warehouse building in like out near downtown LA, really a place where you would film like the most post-apocalyptic movie you would ever imagine, right? Like just like, burnt out couches sitting in front of it, and next to like a wrecking yard, and just you'd go up the service elevator and the whole thing. It was super cool and vibey.
Yeah,
like it was a cool place to like take band pictures and stuff.
Yeah, and
I was in this kind of like alt country indie rock type band, and we shared the practice space with another band, which was this metal band. And it just occurs to me that I don't remember the name of the band, but they were like this kind of like very extreme, like. These guys look like they would get kicked out of Slipknot for just being too aggro looking.
Yeah, for like being what Slipknot just looked like.
Yeah, exactly. But more.
Yeah.
But they were super nice guys, always chill. Like, whenever like we'd mess up and like we'd both show up at the same time. Like they were always very accommodating and chill and whatever.
They didn't just fight you.
No, they were all super chill and mostly high. But but when we kind of split up the room, where like half the room was our stuff and half the room was their stuff. So on our like wall or side of the room, we had like a poster of Neil Young. And like a poster of like Wilco.
Yeah.
And on there...
Just like, well, what are we, an alt country band? Yeah. We should have Neil Young and Wilco.
Exactly, in 2001.
Some old 97s?
Yeah. And on their side of the room, they had a giant collage that they had created. This is probably, in my memory, it's about easily 6x6 of pages torn out from from hardcore pornographic magazines, but with the women's like eyes and faces blacked out. But like a massive collage. Like you had to spend weeks on this to accomplish this level of perversity.
Yeah, that's it's demented.
It was truly demented, and we were just like it was just blended in the background for us.
Yeah.
Except that like we were all guys, but like we would have
eyes blacked out.
No, it was really. I mean, it was like something from the movie Seven or something, and. Except sometimes we would have people audition for the band, like we would need a whatever, and people would come in, and we weren't like specifying you had to be a man or woman, and so like a woman would walk into this like dungeon, like having gone down this like dusty corridor like a Resident Evil movie, and then walk in and see that and like run away screaming, and we'd be like, no, we're the Wilco guys,
we're the nerds on the other side of the
turn around and look at the other side, like that's not, but so that was off-putting, and but you know it was the different time. But the only other decoration
I was going to say, so how are they connected to Quiet Riot?
The only other decoration they had
in
this entire place, other than this like serial killer, you know, like certainly this poster is in an evidence locker somewhere. The only other thing they had was like a 1981 vintage Quiet Riot poster. Like somehow these guys were so extreme and hardcore, and yet. You know, the like come on feel the noise era of Quiet Riot spoke to them in some way.
All right. That's great. I like it.
That's the only connection I have with Quiet Riot or Randy Rhoads or anything like that.
Okay. Great.
Oh, and at one time I ran into Ozzy Osbourne in the bathroom at Jerry's Deli in Westwood.
Okay. Did you say anything?
I mean, it was like 2 a.m. and he was Ozzy Osbourne and I was not. So there was just no way to cover that bridge.
Yeah. I mean, Quiet Riot, the hair metal scene is not, it's not the genre that I'm most boned up on, frankly. You know, and in fact, while I probably like could sing all of the 30 biggest hair metal hits, I would have
do it now.
I would have a tough time like matching each of them to the band that sang them.
Okay,
you know, like I don't think
do
I would,
that too.
I don't think I would do a great job at that. So anyway, it's but that said, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I thought it was pretty good.
Describe the movie.
So it's a very intimate look at Randy Rhoads specifically. It clearly comes from the perspective that he is a gentle soul and a hard worker and a visionary musician who deserves to be recognized as a legendary rock god, a guitar hero. And it's pretty straightforward. It begins with his childhood and it goes through all of his early band years and the struggles of Quiet Riot trying to break through in LA in the late 70s and early 80s. And then as they struggled to do so, being introduced to Ozzy Osbourne, and then his tragic death in a plane crash at a mansion in Florida.
Yeah, it's this is very different from it, I would say, in some ways from any of the documentaries we've reviewed so far.
Yeah.
For one thing, I would say it is like the most sort of meat and potatoes, maybe, documentary. Meaning, like, it's not super high production values. It's not, like, cheap and shitty.
No.
But it's, you know, this is not like, you know, a prestige HBO quality, you know, or even like a high-end Netflix type of documentary or something that was, like, intended to be really, like, you know, have a significant theatrical release, like the Velvet Underground one or something like that.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's not amateur, but it's like, you know, a step below the highest possible production values in terms of like the lighting, the camera, just the way that it's all put together.
The way I put it in my notes was that it's sort of no frills, and the narration is so underplayed that it comes across as sort of cliche, except it's so like uncontrived that it works, that it doesn't feel like it's pressing.
And that's another thing that's a little different is I can't remember another documentary that we've seen or reviewed that has a actual narrator.
Yes.
Like we've had plenty of documentaries where you hear the voice of a person who's being interviewed. Like in the Elvis documentary, Tom Petty almost acts as a narrator because he speaks so much, but he's really an interview subject who just has a lot to say.
Yeah.
But this like on the poster, it says narrated by Tracy Guns, who is not otherwise a character in this movie at all. You don't see him or hear from him. He just kind of like says, and then this happened. Tracy Guns was one of the founding members of Guns N' Roses and went on to be in this band LA Guns, and he's just a guy from that scene. Mm-hmm. And you don't even know if he ever met Randy Rhoads. Like, he's just not mentioned. But I guess, he has some interest in this or he has some connection to this. And, he does a good job as a narrator. Yeah. But just what did you think of just having a narrator as a tool in the documentary?
It's a little bit pat in the first, 5 to 10 minutes where they're sort of just dutifully going through like, Randy Rhoads was born and raised in such and such in
right.
Where was he? Burbank.
Yeah.
And they're sort of trying to race through his young life and get to the good stuff.
Right. His dad left at 17 months and blah blah blah.
Yeah. That stuff doesn't I didn't love, but whatever. They're moving some dirt so that they can get the movie going.
Yeah.
Once it gets going, it's fine because it's a little bit less common, and it's
it's not obtrusive.
There's more, and there's more interviews to carry some of that weight and split it up.
Right. So the broad strokes here is he grew up in Burbank, California. His mother, to make money, started a music school.
Yeah.
And he was, pretty much fell into music very quickly and became this young guitar kind of virtuoso, and started putting bands together, I guess, in high school, and pretty quickly put together the band that eventually became Quiet Riot.
Yeah,
they had another name at one point, but
yeah, he teaches his friend.
It was called Little Women at first.
Yes, and they talk about what a bad band name that was, and I was like, actually, it's kind of a good band name. It's a better band name than Quiet Riot.
I actually read that I don't know if it was the singer or one of the members left, who after Quiet Riot broke up went on to form another band called Little Women for a while, which I was like,
we did have a winner there.
Exactly.
He teaches his good friend to play bass.
Right, Kelly,
who is the bassist for Quiet Riot for a lot of the time that Randy Rhoads is in it, and basically so that they can have a band.
Yeah,
and
which is a pretty classic young person's band move.
Teach your friend
to play the bass. Because as a former bass player, anybody can be taught to play the bass.
Yes.
Let me just peel back the curtain on that one, people.
They describe his guitar, path as he wanted to learn rock and roll, and so he started there. Even though his mom was classically trained and had a traditional music school, and he had learned the piano. When he picked up a guitar, it was because he wanted to learn rock and roll, and he did. And then he went back to a classical training later because he so appreciated the instrument.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting a little later on. Like the band is, trying to cook along and moving up the ranks, and all of a sudden he, as a young, he was like, what, 18, 19 at this time? Yeah. Instead of getting like really hardcore into drugs or whatever, he gets really hardcore into like Bach.
Yes.
Stuff. Just like, okay, cool, man.
And starts like writing these like really detailed, complex compositions, including one that he sort of famously plays as like a featured solo as part of their show.
Right.
That now it's like proggy kind of, it's like all these different sections that are each very interesting. And you listen to other guitarists who they interview and talk about how he influenced them, and the recurring motif is that they picked up his classical influences in his heavy metal guitar, and that inspired other people to go look into how classical guitar relates to a rock and roll guitar.
Right. That's an interesting piece kind of later in the movie when you get a bunch of different guitar players kind of dropping in to like talk about his influence. But yeah, I don't know that this movie like really needs us to go do a blow by blow, because really the story of the movie is,
it's a little movie for one.
Yeah,
it's short.
It's short, like an hour and a half or 80 minutes. Almost all of it is Quiet Riot.
Yes,
which is really weird. He's known as being Ozzy's guitar player.
Yeah,
and yet they didn't have the rights to the Ozzy music. which I noticed. Like, you don't hear Crazy Train or these other songs that like he famously wrote, and
like Crazy Train is one of the more recognizable guitar riffs
in the history
of music.
You hear it at every football game, whatever,
and that is his legacy,
right? And so
you never hear it in this movie.
It's a pretty glaring omission. I understand it's hard to get the rights or whatever because you get like interviews with Ozzy, so it's not like Ozzy wasn't participating in this.
Yeah.
But although those might be old interviews, I don't know. But
there's like one that's like in a media scrum.
Yeah.
With like 5, during like looks
it's like we
Osbourne's
get 5
era.
seconds with Ozzy. Yeah. But most of the story is basically like Quiet Riot as a band trying to make it. I mean, you have some people go in and out of the band. It's not that, shocking.
Yeah.
They spend a long, long, long time trying to make it in LA, playing clubs, trying to get signed. They sign a bad deal, blah, 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 blah.
But that stuff's interesting because one, it's a long window and it's an interesting window into the LA club scene at that time.
Yeah.
And they do a good job of showing that like there were a lot of clubs, there were a lot of musicians, there were a lot of people living there, and so you could, even though they weren't making it, they weren't breaking, you could play in clubs all the time, and they were playing a lot of shows a week
to like hundreds of thousands of people
to
all
like,
the time.
Yeah, to like lots
all
of people.
in LA, basically.
Yeah, right. They were just an LA band. And like there's one later interview with Randy where he refers to them as like a local band. He says, he's talking about Quiet Riot, who goes on to like at one time be the #1 band in the world. And he's like, I used to be in a local band before I hooked up with Ozzy.
Yeah, it's such a weird slice of life, and there's other documentaries like the Twisted Sister documentary, which is taking place at the exact same time but on the other coast, where it's really like that. Like, you can be a band that's super popular in your little area, and you can play to like hundreds or sometimes thousands of people a night, multiple times a week, in your little region. It's like all those people had to that was their life.
Yes.
Was that they were going out every night to like drink beer and watch hard rock bands.
Right.
And there, that just doesn't exist in the same way anymore.
Yeah.
So it's such an interesting slice of life. The other thing that was really interesting about that, though, was they talk about how the band started, and they're teenagers basically starting to play some little clubs. And without really commenting on it, the movie starts to tell you about how, well, here's an interview with their friend Jody, who was their costume designer. Yeah. Here's the interview with this woman, Lori, who saw them first time at 14, and she became their fan club president. And this person, became their, one of their roadies. And I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. You've got costume designers and fan club presidents and roadies, and you're like, and nobody's acting like that's unusual.
Right.
It's like if you were started a band in your garage and you were halfway decent in 1977 in LA.
Right.
You could just have you could just have roadies, and fan clubs and costume designers, and that was just a normal slice of life.
Yes, yeah. And so I should say here, I watched last night after this. There's another documentary, Quiet Riot. Well, Now You're Here. That's a 24 documentary that is much more focused on the post Randy period for the band, which is when they got huge.
That's not mentioned at all in this movie.
It's not mentioned, period.
It's not
at all.
This movie
There's not even a postscript afterwards that's like, this came later.
It's like if you didn't know Quiet Riot, you never heard of them, and you watch this movie,
you'd just be like, oh, that's so sad. That LA band that had so many fans, they never made it after Randy left.
Yeah, like a year after he left, they recorded Metal Health and the song Come On Feel the Noise, which you've heard 10,000 times no matter who you are.
Yeah.
Again, at like every sporting event and wherever, you just hear it, and they were massive, and then they had problems and broke up and other things, but it's so weird that the movie just does not mention what happens to this band that you just spent 70 of the 80 minutes in the movie watching their attempted rise.
Yes. Yeah, it's an interesting choice, and I do wonder if there's a story behind the choice, because purely creatively, to like not mention it at all is it's notable, I'll say.
Well,
but I'll say that this other movie, Dee Snider is a talking head in it, and he talks a lot about how like the industry just had no time for these bands. There was quite a few of them going on. He was and there was sort of a Quiet Riot, Twisted Sister, East Coast, West Coast rivalry. And
Okay.
they're each going on without industry representation, playing to thousands of people, and there was just no interest. And so I think that's like a pretty cool part about this movie as like a music documentary to document that little period as the rise of this genre that it's not a lot of people's favorite these days, but it was huge for a decade, and it had like an underground period. It had a tough time where it wasn't breaking through and the industry didn't want it. And as they talk about in this one, like if you weren't new wave, no one wanted you.
Right. People wanted punk. They wanted new wave. They wanted disco.
The Go-Go's. They wanted Devo. Yeah, there's some Bee Gees hate in that other documentary as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a big part of the Twisted Sister story. But yeah, the whole dynamic that like you could, I mean, they were doing other jobs. Like Randy was teaching guitar lessons to make money, to make ends meet. It wasn't like
school,
Yeah, it wasn't like they
all had day jobs.
Yeah, it wasn't like you could, live on the high life just playing in some clubs and that was it.
Yeah.
But if you, from the perspective of I want to play music in front of people,
yeah,
like you could do that. And if you were halfway decent, there was a crowd just waiting for that entertainment.
Well, so there's like an old, like an LA news clip that they use in the other documentary that is like, basically making the case, hey, all these people have day jobs. They use the money that they make their day jobs to buy these garish outfits that they wear on stage, as well as smoke machines and lights, all to create arena rock level production for their club show.
Right.
And that's what's like bringing the people out. That's like the narrative of the thing. And, it goes back to what you were saying about how odd it is that at this time you could like be a working musician that was entirely local, that just never broke out of any sort of little bubble.
Yeah, I mean, you hear about.
I mean, I guess you can do that now, but it's usually like more of a hobby.
Right, it's a smaller scale kind of thing.
Yeah.
Another interesting rivalry is the rivalry with Van Halen,
yes,
and specifically Randy's rivalry with Eddie Van Halen.
Yes,
because it seems like one of those things where, like, really in the LA club scene for some number of years in the mid '70s. It was like, who's going to break out, Quiet Riot or Van Halen? And they each had their clubs they played at.
And it sounded like fans chose sides.
Yeah. And like, I don't know like if you're a fan of both these bands in their club days, like which is the right side to choose?
Yeah.
Because if you're like a fan of Van Halen and you saw them a bunch of times, kind of in the like Atomic Punks, like before they kind of broke out period, like that's cool. And I'm sure it was great, but like they immediately hit the stratosphere and you never saw them again.
Yeah.
Whereas Quiet Riot, it seems like like that woman who was the head of their fan club is still like kind of involved in the whole Quiet Riot phenomenon, like to this day.
Yes.
It seems like even though they did get big, they were never as big as Van Halen, or at least not, for a very brief time.
Yeah.
Like they're not going in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They're not, everybody knows Van Halen. My mom knows Van Halen.
Yeah.
And so you could kind of stay on that Quiet Riot ride as they went up, if you kind of chose that direction.
Well, and the thing is, the post Randy Quiet Riot becomes like there's no like neat parallel between Van Halen and Quiet Riot after that.
Yeah,
it worked earlier because it's like, well, one has Randy and one has Eddie Van Halen, right?
Right.
And the Quiet Riot also has a charismatic lead singer who's trying to do a showman and very 80s hair metal LA thing, and Kevin Dubrow, who's like sort of like a poor man's David Lee Roth.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
sure.
A poor man's David Lee Roth, certainly.
We got a little bit of that Robin Zander thing from Cheap Trick.
Right. But like the post, then they go into the movie, with the post Randy period of Quiet Riot, the dynamic of the band is Kevin Dubrow and their new drummer.
Right.
It's not like another virtuoso guitarist.
Right, which seems like probably a smart move to not try to find another Randy Rhoads.
Yeah, yeah.
But just a couple of things about the Eddie Van Halen thing, because I guess they played this piece of an interview with Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, it's great.
Which was after Randy Rhoads had died.
Yeah.
This is some period after Randy Rhoads had died. And in the interview, you hear Eddie saying, everything he did, he learned from me. And I guess Randy's guitar tech would stick a picture of Eddie on
his wah-wah pedal.
on Randy's wah-wah pedal, so like Randy would be really aggressive and like step on Eddie's face. And they just apparently did not like each other. But then, because he was giving music lessons, like guitar players would come in and they would want to learn Van Halen songs, and Randy would just suck it up and learn the song so that he could teach it to these kids. So there's a clip of Randy playing Running with the Devil, which sounds cool.
Yeah.
And even
Well, and there's also I can't remember if it's somebody related to Randy, maybe his ex-girlfriend or the fan club president, who says that Eddie used to come to Quiet Riot shows.
Right, but Randy would never
go to Van Halen shows, and that they thought that he was scouting and he was looking for moves.
Yeah. Yeah, and at one point they show Randy playing his like epic guitar solo piece, which is called Laughing Gas.
Yeah.
Which is very similar to Eruption, Eddie Van Halen's like famous piece that he played, that's on the Van Halen 1 record. And I mean, I love Eruption.
Yeah.
Eruption is just one of the greatest things recorded. Laughing Gas is cool.
Yeah, I thought Laughing Gas was cool.
I don't know. If I'd never heard Eruption, probably Laughing Gas would have blown me away. But watching it, I was like, I don't know, man. My take is it's a little bit of a, not to slam Randy, it's a little bit of a second tier, Eruption. But maybe it's just because like I heard Eruption and just fell in love with it when I was 14. And so I know every note of it. And like, so I just have no critical distance.
Well, I like what they say about it. I can't remember who it is in the movie says this, but that, a lot of guitar solos are frankly pretty boring. There's not much happening. They're kind of just playing a bunch of notes, and it's very indulgent. And that Laughing Gas solo, Randy's centerpiece during it, was not like that at all.
It's not boring.
It was an arranged piece of music that went places and did different things and had different sections. And that's the part that feels like proggy to me almost.
Yeah.
And I just think it's not what you would. There's certainly the guitar sounds exactly like 80s hair metal,
right?
Definitely, the tone, but the entire musical composition is very different than hair metal, and I think is sort of a good little showcase for what else was going on in that scene.
Sure. Yeah. I also just watching this movie gives me a little nostalgia.
Yeah.
For the days of the Guitar Hero.
Yes.
When like that was okay, in this
Could
case
you imagine like going to like an indie band that you only kind of know and seeing that type of like spotlight on their lead guitarist? Like it just doesn't happen now except at like jam shows, basically.
Right, but it's
there's
not
like
the
no
same.
Guitar Hero type mentality anymore.
Yeah, like nobody is saying, "Hey, you should come to this club on a Tuesday night."
Yeah.
Because they have this like cool, sexy lead singer.
Yeah.
And then you got to see this guitar player. He's incredible.
Right.
Like that world doesn't exist, but it was the case for 30, 40,
years.
like a long time.
Yes.
Right. I mean, who was the last real? There was Slash, obviously Eddie Van Halen, but there's people who are known for playing guitar, whether it's Jack White or St. Vincent or whatever, but they're not the same. Like, they're not the Keith Richards model of Guitar Hero or where they're not a singer. They're just, it's like Slash, Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, like their job is to stand, Kirk Hammett, like their job is to stand there, and when the solo kicks in, just to shred,
to rip ass. Yeah.
I mean, Mike McCready.
Yeah. Mike McCready does a lot of that for Pearl Jam for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Mike Campbell, but like, who's the last one? I mean, is Mike McCready the last guitar? Kim Thayil and Mike McCready, they were guitar heroes, definitely.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, you kind of had that a little bit in the new metal, but not really, because it wasn't really solo heavy, like Wes Borland as well. I mean, Tom Morello, maybe he's the last guitar hero.
Yeah, Tom Morello. Nels?
Nels is like not that well known, and
yeah.
If you're like a Wilco nerd, you're like, yeah, he's a really good guitar player.
I mean, like when I heard he was playing with Phil, I was like, oh God, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to hear what Nels does with some of these solos.
Right, but he's not like
He's not. No,
He
he's
just
not.
doesn't have
He's
the
not.
image.
He's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about
obviously.
somebody with the image. We're like,
Yeah.
it's just pure sex on the guitar.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anybody from like the last 20 years. Really,
I mean,
like
those kind of bands
post,
don't exist anymore.
Post Jack White, yeah.
I mean, certainly, I'm sure in the metal world, you still get
Yes.
bands that like the lead guitar player for whatever this metal band that came out a few years ago is just tearing it up.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
it's not that there's not great players.
that does happen in the jam band world. Is like if you
sure, Rick.
You know, that Rick for Goose or something. You like somebody will introduce a band to you, and it's like the first question is about their lead guitarist, right? Like you might be interested in how they sing and who writes the songs and whether the songs are good and what their jams are like, but like a quick selling point is going to be the case you can make for their lead guitarist.
See, this is like the sort of adjacent to the point that future Rock Docs guest Steve Hyden makes.
Yeah.
That like jam bands are kind of like where classic rock is now.
Yes.
Like if you like classic rock and you were like, I wish this thing still existed. Well, it does.
Yeah.
It's just called jam bands.
I mean, that's true. I mean, it's like I saw a band that I'm not like crazy about, but whatever, I like them. And
Fish
is Humphreys McGee about a week ago, and like that was like quickly became the thing. It was like, well, like I'm not crazy about their songs; they don't sing well, but like there's going to be 7 to 10 guitar solos that I'm absolutely there for, and like well worth $20, you know?
Yeah. So this guy came along, Randy. He came along at the right time. Let's just say.
Yeah, yeah. So the other point that was like so curious to me during this time where it's quite a long time that they are not getting signed, and it's so funny based on all the other documentaries that we watch or just documentaries that are out there about famous musicians. Is like you show up in LA in the 70s and like when you come across the county line, there's a record contract waiting for you.
Right.
This is like the first example we have of somebody having to like sweat to get a record contract in Los Angeles in the 70s or 80s.
Yeah. For some reason, they're the only one.
The only one. Yeah. Like, I mean, there's bands that like can't make it at all. But so they have an interesting part here where they hold like a protest at all the record studios to try to get a deal. Yep. But they're like inept with the publicity, so they've tried to get media crews to like meet them at each of the different studios, but they're always 30 minutes ahead of the film crew.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and so that's where they spend a lot of time on the Kevin Dubrow, the lead singer of Quiet Riot, who. I mean, he was the face of the band, not Randy Rhoads. Now, I mean, I don't think there's any question that Randy Rhoads was the genius of the band at that time, but Kevin Dubrow was who was, you know, for better or worse, going to sell the band to radio stations and record labels.
Yeah, he was kind of the the sexy lead singer, and he stayed through. I mean, he was the guy.
Also, he like wasn't sexy.
I mean, I don't know. Like he seems like he had charm.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, the other thing that's interesting, and he says something. There's like an old interview with him, like looks like it was sometime in the '90s with like MTV or something, where he's talking about like Whitesnake, I think it was, and he's talking about just like the fact that they were like 5 years older than all those other bands. And it's like, it's interesting to think of...
Quiet Riot was 5 years older than like the bands that were coming out in the 80s.
Whitesnake and Def Leppard or whoever, right?
Right. Motley Crue.
And I think it was about Motley Crue, right?
Maybe it was talking about how Nikki Sixx
auditioned and wasn't good enough and hadn't learned how to play yet.
He could not play bass at all.
Yes. Even for their band, where they're like their bassist was terrible and had to get kicked out of the band. Oh, it was when they were replacing him.
Right.
And so... It's interesting to just think of like building that sound where you had Quiet Riot being like a good half decade ahead of that entire scene coming in behind them.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
A couple of the notes I had. Mm-hmm. This documentary includes a phrase that I think maybe legally you cannot have a rock doc without including this phrase.
Yeah.
And that phrase is, the minute he walked onto that stage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's good.
I've kind of noticed that that's really just, you got to have that. The minute he walked onto that stage. I think we should start tabulating these in future rock. Right. I haven't made a point of it, but going forward, we should just
like
note
the ding sound. Add in post production. Yeah. So the second basis they come in talk about people who stand out in their talking head segments. Rudy Sarzo, I thought he was a great talking head. Specifically, when he's talking about how Randy wrote songs and the sort of time changes and key changes that he put in, he really gets into particulars in a way that often music documentaries like struggle to talk about music in specifics, and Rudy Sarzo does a really good job of it, I think. Yeah, he does. And I think it draws out what made Randy Rhoads a unique guitar player.
Yeah. There's interesting things in there in this about the details of the music that sometimes don't get into, like Drew Forsythe, who's the drummer through most of the band, and he's one of the main talking heads in the movie.
He is, and he sort of has some gripes, clearly.
Yeah, he has some gripes, but he's a good talking head, I'll say.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, he seems like a regular dude.
He does. He was replaced right after Randy left as well.
Right. Yeah, but he gives it straight. But yeah, he talks about how in most bands, like, the drummer sets the tempo, and then the other musicians, guitar, drum, whatever, guitar, bass, key, whatever, follows behind that. And in Quiet Riot, like, he says nobody listened to the drums.
Yeah.
Like, Randy was setting the whole thing. Like, everybody was following him.
Yeah.
It was just a totally different kind of vibe than just about every band, and maybe you wouldn't really notice it unless you're the drummer sitting there watching it happen. But it was just, he was just such a musical force that that just nobody else was. It was just not even a question of who was, who was wearing the musical pants in this family.
Yeah. So in the other movie I watched, which is I think directed by Frankie Banali's daughter. Frankie Banali's the next drummer. And so they have like a cutesy, tongue-in-cheek, funny view of him. They like the premise is that he's a strange guy, and they treat him as the drummer, Frankie Banali, and he is discussed he is featured in this movie. But yeah, when he comes in, they make him out to be like a Bonham disciple who completely changes the sound because he's so loud, and he plays like an absolute wild man. And that totally changed Quiet Riot.
Yeah. It's time to kind of get into the Ozzy stuff. So Ozzy basically does not show up as a character in this movie until 56 minutes into the movie. Like, easily 2/3 into the movie.
Before we move on real quick, I just wanted to say that the Quiet Riot fan club protest, signed Quiet Riot, I had that written down here that this is the first Snyder Cut. This is the start of the Snyder Cut movement.
I wrote down the same thing.
Okay, great.
Exactly. Wait, hold on. We'll go back to that. So, yes, so they tried to engineer this protest to get, like, they went to, like, every record company in L.A. to, I think we glossed over this, so let's just go back and say it. They organized their fans to go to every record company in LA on this one day and like protest with these signs like "Sign Quiet Riot," and they would try to like have the media come, but like they didn't have their schedule right, so like they would move on to the next record company, but the media would show up to the previous one, and they finally caught up the last one though.
Yes, and so but they're trying to shame Capitol Records into like demanding that they sign this band because after all they play at this same club
as Van Halen
and every night, and they sell out, and they have these huge shows, and like, what are you doing? We're entitled to this, and it's just like such a 2020 internet culture mentality.
Yeah, exactly. It's like these same kids would be today like complaining that the new Lord of the Rings show is too woke or something.
yes, exactly. So anyway, I love that. But yes, okay.
Right. So basically what happens is Ozzy left Black Sabbath. Now, Randy Rhoads didn't like Black Sabbath, but he was asked to audition for Ozzy, and he kind of couldn't turn it down. And it seemed like Quiet Riot, like, it had been so long trying to get signed. Like, I could see why he kind of wanted an escape. He, like,
And like they had been passed over by every
Yes.
record label twice by this point.
Yeah, like they were getting rejection letters. Like they were just like, please stop asking us. We are not going to sign you.
Right.
So like he goes to the studio to like audition for Ozzy, and he doesn't even know like what's gonna like he like had to kind of run there like after he had like lessons that he had to teach, and he shows up and he's just like doing some warm-up exercises on the guitar to like warm up and like get ready,
Just like plugging into like a little portable amp.
yeah,
with
he just
no
shows up with a
effects.
guitar,
Yeah.
plugs into a little portable amp. He's just doing some like scales and warm-up exercises, and basically they were like, okay, well that you're good enough, obviously, just based on like doing the warm-up exercises that he was doing. Like he was just obviously that good that Ozzy was just like, who's this guy? Let's get him.
So that whole section, that whole like Ozzy audition section is great.
Yes.
Like A+ rock
This
doc.
is prime rock doc stuff,
Prime rock doc stuff right there. Like they have a number of different perspectives on it, and they're all telling basically the same story, and they're spliced really well. The editing's very good. Ozzy is featured. Ozzy offers his testimony of remembering it and like looking down at the ground doing something else and like hearing it and just like from the moment the guy walked on stage type thing.
Exactly.
And that's what we're here for. So cut that. That's in the Rock Docs Hall of Fame.
And I feel like maybe this movie would have been better if they had like maybe put that up front.
Yes.
And then then you go back and you see what led up to it.
Well, like we should mention, if you haven't watched this, you're 50 minutes into this movie at this point. We've just been toiling on Quiet Riot not getting signed for 40 minutes.
Yeah, no, literally, this is 56 minutes. I made a note.
Okay, yeah.
So this is, we're almost done with the movie when this happens. And
Right.
it's kind of like burying the lead.
And I'm like getting so excited when this is happening. I'm like, oh, now we're going, baby.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's only 20 minutes left in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. So, I just feel like if you had put that up front somehow, because it's so good, and then you'd shown the whole build up to it and then gone back to it, or you'd somehow tease that at the beginning.
Yes.
Like maybe you just have Ozzy saying like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, man. Whatever.
He was just playing scales.
Yeah, but it was so good. And then you go back and, maybe a little bit of that editing would have, tightened the movie up or given a little bit more of a dramatic arc.
Yes.
So anyway, he quits Quiet Riot. There's a little bit of a reunion show, but like it's kind of just glossed over.
Yeah. But even when that happens, so maybe this is, I don't know enough about Quiet Riot to say this authoritatively, but like, it seems obvious to me that him hooking up with Ozzy should have been seen by the other members of Quiet Riot as the best thing to ever happen to Quiet Riot.
Yeah.
That like, either he comes back and you like
have Ozzy's guitar
because
player.
like Ozzy's not exactly the most dependable gig
right
in music, and now you've got the rock god who you might get signed now. You're not, you don't even have a contract yet, and they don't see it that way at all. They, in fact, like multiple of them, like say they saw it as a straight up betrayal,
right?
And that he didn't handle it well. He couldn't tell them personally that he was leaving. They don't see it as the opportunity that like I think it should have been seen as.
It just seems like career wise, these guys didn't all make the right moves at all.
Yeah.
At all times.
Yeah. So that stuff is great, and then like right away they write Crazy Train.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you got to write some songs for this new album. Well, I'm just going to write Crazy Train. He does, Blizzard of Oz. Then, he just goes on these giant tours, and he's just talking about how, because there's more interviews with Randy, talking about how like it's just almost like terrifying to be on these huge stages with these huge, production, and, you get.
You get like Anthrax and Whitesnake dudes coming in to be like, dude, Crazy Train was the best thing I had ever heard. Like that's my song. Like that's what I was going for. And that is absolutely a rock doc trope.
Yeah.
But it's a rock doc trope that I like want in there.
Oh yeah.
I want to hear the guys tell me like that they were into it,
Yeah. No, that's great. I love it. And you get like kind of the well-worn stories of Ozzy, pissing on the Alamo, Ozzy biting the head off a dead bat on stage.
But it's worth saying that like that was the the Randy era.
Right.
If you're like not a
The stuff
historian,
that you
could
kinda know
easily
about
think
Ozzy.
that like that might have happened at Black Sabbath. That
Right.
might have happened in the '90s at Ozfest,
which
who
was
knows?
like a 2-year period.
Yes.
Well, the period when Randy was with Ozzy is like the period of Ozzy's career that everybody knows about.
Yes.
And Randy tried to get Ozzy to chill out on the drugs and booze, but that didn't work. So basically, they made these 2 albums together.
We
and
should
then,
say during this period, the triumphant return of a hero of this program, Dweezil Zappa.
of course, Dweezil. Yes, yeah. Dweezil comes in to talk about how Randy was such an influence on him, which is weird because it's like you could have just been like, look at your dad.
Yes, right.
But also enjoyed classical music and played rock guitar.
But because of that, like you can see.
Oh yeah,
you can definitely see like the Zappa connection to Randy for sure, right?
Please, no.
Yeah.
Dweezil is a hero of,
And not just because he is a kind soul who recognizes a young man in distress playing softball in a backyard baseball game.
This is getting deep into Rock Doc's lore and Dave Lizerbram lore, but Dweezil is a hero both in my own personal life and in Rock Doc's lore. So shout out to Dweezil.
Yes.
Always good to see him. Put him in every Rock Doc.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the sad piano music comes in.
Yes.
So, as a side note, before we get into the tragic ending,
Yeah.
they mentioned that they were on the way to a gig, which was, did you catch the name of the gig?
No.
The gig was Rock Super Bowl 14. So I'm like, wait a minute.
You
Tell
looked
me
it up?
more. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. So I guess what happened was at the Tangerine Bowl in Orlando, they would have these events called the Rock Super Bowl. It seems like a couple times a year. And I don't know why the NFL, I mean, I am in my personal life a trademark lawyer.
Okay.
So I'm familiar with the ownership around the term Super Bowl.
They should have called it the Rock Big Game 4.
Right. Superb Owl.
Yeah, Superb Owl.
One
4.
of those.
Yeah.
So I guess what happened was like there was from what I could tell, there was a concert at this stadium, Tangerine Bowl, in '74 with Black Oak, Arkansas, Marshall Tucker Band, and a few others. And then a few years later, they had another one in '77 with the Eagles, Jimmy Buffett, and Hall & Oates, which is just a killer lineup. In '77, they called that Rock Super Bowl too, and then they just stuck with this. Every few months, they would have a Rock Super Bowl. I don't have the list of all of them, but it's like, Bob Seger and Foreigner, and then a few years later, it's ZZ Top, and really big bands, REO Speedwagon. I mean, these are huge names at the time. So then the 1982 one was going to be Foreigner, Ozzy Osbourne, Bryan Adams. Interesting to see Bryan Adams kind of like being a rocker in that. This is
Yes.
kind of before he became the soft rock guy,
Yeah.
and like this is probably even before like summer of '69. But and these went on. There was I guess as far as I can tell, the last Rock Super Bowl was Rock Super Bowl 19 in 1983. So this is like they were having these now like almost monthly with the Police. And I guess that was it. Yeah, the Rock Super Bowl. There's a lot of these. I kind of like want a Rock Doc just about the Rock Super Bowls.
All right. Well, this, I'm sorry, but we're right in our wheelhouse here, talking about old festival lineups.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to piggyback. The other Quiet Riot documentary that I watched, they pinpoint like their moment.
Yeah.
As happening at the US Festival.
Oh, yeah.
In 1983.
That was a big deal.
Yes, which was in San Bernardino, and it was like, they say 300,000 people. Listen to our last episode about how confident I am in that number.
Trey has a team of engineers working on this.
One. But I'll say it looked like a large crowd. But so the US Festival in '83 on Sunday was headlined by Van Halen.
Yep.
And also included Scorpions, Triumph, Judas Priest, Ozzy Osbourne, Joe Walsh, and Motley Crue.
Yeah.
So like it had happened by
it's
that
a good
point,
time.
right? This is like hair metal happening now.
Yeah.
Other bands, there was like, it looks like they sort of had a like a new wave day or a new wave and post punk day. They had like the Clash, Men at Work, English Beat, Oingo Boingo. And then on Monday, the headliners were like David Bowie, Stevie Nicks. So, and U2 So like this was a
one of
giant
U2's
festival.
first big festivals. Yeah.
Okay, was okay.
Yeah.
But so I watched that last night, and then today I woke up. That was to me the first time I had heard of the US Festival.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then this morning I woke up, and I was, as I do, going through my various social media meme accounts that are all focused on Fish and the Grateful Dead.
Yes.
And learned that 1 year earlier exactly, the Grateful Dead played the US Festival.
There's more than one US Festival?
Yes, it was in 1982. It happened 2 times exactly.
I love how there's 2 of these with 2 killer lineups, and then they're like, well, we're done with this.
Yeah. In 1982, the US Festival included the Grateful Dead, Tom Petty, Fleetwood Mac, the Police, the Cars, Talking Heads, the Kinks, Ramones, B-52s, the English Beat, Gang of Four, Pat Benatar.
Gang of Four.
And Jackson Browne. And get this, the entire festival was paid for out of pocket by Stephen Wozniak.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Give me the rock doc about that.
The US Festival. Let's figure that out.
So this is like Apple.
We have like 6 documentaries about Woodstock 99 and none, as far as I can tell, about the short-lived US Festival of 82 and 83 in San Bernardino, California.
Apple goes IPO. Wozniak goes from being a guy like living on, Steve Jobs' couch to
like
a
being
billionaire.
Like, so I could meet Jerry Garcia if I put on this festival for
He's
300,000
like, what would be a
people.
good festival? The Grateful Dead and Gang of Four.
Yeah.
And then he pays for it. The next year, he's like, well, I blew all my Apple money, so now we got to actually charge for tickets.
Right.
And they have US Festival too, and then it all dies out.
Yes.
Meanwhile, there's been like 300 Coachellas or 10,000 Lollapaloozas.
Yes.
Bring back the US Festival, people.
Yeah,
Come on.
seriously. It's just sitting there. You're a trademark lawyer. I'm
You
sure
can't
could,
do Rock Super Bowl 20. I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you it's not going to work. But the US Festival, you probably do.
Yeah. Well, in any case, I think like you listen to that 82 lineup, and there's like no scent of Van Halen, Quiet Riot,
Right. There's
and
no
Motley Crue.
Yeah, it's not hair metal at all.
And then a year later, like
Boom.
it's here, boom. You
Yeah.
know?
Okay. So, sadly,
great detour. Happy with
great,
that.
love it. This is what we're here for. All right. So the story is that this country singer Jerry Calhoun, who I've never heard of before, but I'm sure is great. He had this. He was this apparently very successful country singer who also like owned tour buses, and so they rented their tour bus from Jerry Calhoun. They're driving to Orlando, and there was a problem with the bus. So the bus driver Andrew Aycock pulls over at Jerry Calhoun's house, his mansion, to fix the bus. At this mansion, there was a small private airplane
And a landing strip.
This bus driver, Andrew Aycock, was a pilot, and so while they're waiting for the bus to be fixed, he convinced 2 of the people on the bus to go on a joyride, which they did, and then he landed, and then, although Randy Rhoads wasn't apparently very enthusiastic about this, he convinced Randy Rhoads and the makeup artist. Again, they had a makeup artist.
Yes.
Of course. But this is Ozzy's band, so, okay.
Maybe they could have given him more time, but they say her name, they show her photo.
Rachel Youngblood. Okay.
Yes.
So he convinced Randy Rhoads and Rachel Youngblood to go. He promised he wasn't going to do any crazy stunts, just kind of go up and then go down. But of course, he did, in fact, do crazy stunts. He was like buzzing the house and doing all these, buzzing the bus like 3 times, and the wing clipped the bus the 3rd time. The plane crashed, and the 3 people on board were all killed. And apparently, the famous story is that Ozzy was asleep on the bus. He didn't know about any of this. He was just asleep on the bus. The bus had pulled over. All this had happened. All of a sudden, this plane clips his bus, and he wakes up and he sees this plane crash, and his beloved friend and musical collaborator Randy Rhoads is now dead. And his report, which I've heard him tell this story many times, but it's just harrowing. Yeah. I mean, you just can't even explain how terrifying that is, and what a tragedy.
And look, maybe they're all taking care of Randy Rhoads' legacy here, but I don't know how easy it would be to get away with that if that was the case. The account here is that Randy Rhoads was like not a drug guy,
right?
Not a booze guy, not a thrill seeker guy.
Yeah.
He seems to be a pretty quiet, humble, like sweet guy.
Yeah.
And like small in stature. Ozzy keeps talking about what a little person he was, that he was
Right.
like thin and slight. And you know, like there's other corroborating stories. His girlfriend, who was dating Kevin Dubrow, the lead singer, who was much, you know, like a larger than life personality.
Right.
They split, and Randy sees an opportunity and calls her up and asks her if she would like to go to Disneyland.
Right.
You know, he's the type of guy who,
Right. Jody.
that's his move. He calls Jody and asks her, and then they become a thing from then on until he dies. So I mean, I have no reason to disbelieve the account of this movie that he was not a maniac. He was a pretty sweet and humble guy.
More quiet than Riot.
More quiet. He was the quiet part of Riot. But yeah, it's really sad, and I like, you know, it doesn't take a literary degree to see where this story's going when they pull the bus off the house and you see the airplane sitting there.
Yeah, no.
But it's like I said out loud, like, holy shit, man! You know, it's rough to listen to. A guy who's, you know, you think about the way what happened to his contemporaries' lives after that. He was going to go on to many years of influential, you know, music.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, like Ozzy Osbourne is like putting out a new album now,
right?
Like literally his songwriting partner on stage duo guy, like, you know. He's still out there doing it unbelievably after all these years. Yeah, I mean, you look at like I don't know, I'm sure just like other guitar virtuosos, like that's a life in music that ages well. There's always room for, you know, even the 65, 70-year-old former guitar god to like come plug in with somebody. Yeah, sure. No, I mean, there's no question that. Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously we lost Eddie Van Halen last year or the year before, but you know he. You know, had a much longer life than his contemporary, yeah. I mean, you know, there's no reason to believe that he, you know, because he wasn't a big drug or alcohol guy, that he wouldn't have just gone on to, you know, bigger and better things, or you know, whatever it is he wanted to do. I mean, really, he's got his legacy musically is some stuff he recorded with Quiet Riot, but not a ton. Yeah. And then Laughing Gas, probably. Laughing Gas, sure. Yeah. And then, you know, Crazy Train and the first Ozzy album. The second one was kind of a rush job. Yeah. Diary of a Madman. But yeah, so it's just not a lot of actual evidence of you know, his greatness. But the stuff that he did was killer. And I mean, how much do you feel like you get his personality in the movie? I think it comes through. I think, you know, some of the stories I was talking about, like, I think you look at telling anecdotes, and like his girlfriend saying that he asked her to go to, you know, a 22-year-old kid in a metal band, asking her if she would like to go to Disneyland the next day for their first date. That to me is like a telling anecdote. Right. You know, that reveals his soft nature. Yeah, I feel like there's just enough to kind of get that. And I mean, and the some of the like interviews that they have with him, like for instance when he's talking about the second album not being his favorite and being a rush job, he's so soft spoken. Right. And he's so careful. And he's you know, he's not bombastic. He, you know, in that case he's talking about like not loving the album, but he's so gentle about it. Yeah. That it sort of gives you a bit of a window into the type of guy he is, or at least it seems to. Yeah. And look, I mean, in terms of the movie, you know, Randy Rhoads is well known as a guitar player, and he's well known in like the hard rock metal world. Yeah. But obviously he died very young, and he is not going to get the treatment that the Beatles or whoever, you know, or a Tina Turner or somebody who's just like such a huge megastar on their own is going to get. Right. So I think in the context of, you know, the sort of probably budgetary restrictions and other, you know, what the people were working with in terms of making this movie, like, I think they pulled off a pretty good movie. I think so too. I liked it a lot. We can skip here, I guess, to our recommendation corner. Yes. Do you recommend this movie to a non Quiet Riot / hair metal head?
And to me, yeah, I think they made a really nice movie here. It's short, and I don't think it really needed to be any longer. I think the choice to like completely excise the post Randy Quiet Riot career is an interesting one. I'm not ready to say that I don't agree with it, but it is interesting that you could watch this whole movie and have no idea that his old band would go on to like top Thriller on the overall record sales chart.
Right, but like maybe it doesn't matter. Like he never knew that.
I don't.
He wasn't around for that.
That's true. That's an interesting interpretation of why do it. Randy died.
Like,
you know,
yeah. Like whatever happened after he died was not relevant to
Yeah.
Ozzy went on and did stuff too, but like it's not relevant.
Yeah. That's a defensible perspective. I think it's a really nice movie. I think it sells like it tells a really interesting story about this guy. And I think it does something that's difficult, which is it conveys like what it was that was unique about him as a guitarist. You know, if you're without just having like it being a tutorial on different types of guitar playing, it's hard for that to come across. But I think it does come across in this movie.
Right. As a non-guitar player, you kind of get what made him special.
What made him special, what made him different, you know, in the lineage within which he sits. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not the type of movie that's so, you know, sort of grabs you in the way that maybe some of the documentaries we've seen were like, I will tell anybody to see this movie. Like, you know, you're just going to grab people on the street and tell them to see this movie.
Right.
Like, they have to have some level of just general interest in rock docs, which if you're listening to this podcast, maybe you do. Yeah. Or, you know, hard rock, metal. Like, you need to have some entry into the, you know, into the piece in order to, like, you know, have it be worth 90 minutes of your time. But in that context, I would say, yeah, it's effective.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just a nice tribute to apparently a pretty sweet guy who is certainly a brilliant musician.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, nobody wanted the movie to end the way that it did. You know?
Yeah, and like, you know, I said at the top that I like this isn't my genre, and we've talked about a number of bands that aren't my genre that I liked the movie enough to start dipping into their music after we turned it off. I listen to Zappa a fair amount now.
Right.
I listen to Billie Eilish a fair amount now. I liked both of those movies enough, but that's probably not going to happen for me with Quiet Riot.
You're not going on the Crazy Train.
You know, I take that back. I always liked Crazy Train.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
come
on. I'm a red-blooded American. I like.
Come on.
I like Ozzy. Are you kidding?
Throw on a steak on the grill and play some Crazy Train. Come on.
Yeah. But it you know, it doesn't need to. I think the movie works without having that be sort of a standard of entry in the first place.
Right, and primarily the Quiet Riot discography isn't even Randy's work anyway. So it's not true. Like, I mean, basically, if you want to get into Randy, there's like a little bit of Quiet Riot and those 2 Ozzy albums and some live stuff. That's it. Yeah. So you know, it's not like a real deep rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, that was that was the Randy Rhoads story, and that's I think that basically wraps it up. Yeah, we're good. We did it.
We did
another episode.
Yep.
Would you say we've recorded a podcast
successfully? Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you've got takes, holler at us.
If you're part of the Rock Docs fan club, then we will be holding protests at all of the main podcast studios. Demanding a contract.
Spotify, why haven't you paid us $300 million?
Yeah, exactly. Osiris, the ringer. Let's go. Answer for yourselves.
Come on, people. Yeah. Our 14-year-old fan club president will be organizing that, so she'll be sending you a postcard. Yeah. Look for that. And there you go. Otherwise, you can talk to us on Twitter at RockDocsPod. You can go to wherever you find podcasts and leave us a nice review or a shitty review or whatever you like. And that's Rock Docs.